Welcome to the Future of Payroll and Workforce Management Insights by HR.com, your go-to resource for insights into payroll and workforce management. From navigating compliance and technology trends to exploring the latest in global payroll solutions, we're here to keep you ahead of the curve. Join us as we dive into the forces reshaping payroll and share practical strategies to optimize your workforce management. Let's get started. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this latest episode of Future of Payroll and Workforce Management, a podcast here at HR.com. Let's talk about my guest. Welcome, Lori.
Hi, welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Lori McPherson. Just for our audience, she's a very knowledgeable tax and payroll practitioner and expert, and this is her second time on the podcast. We loved the topic last time so much, and I forgot what the last topic is, and that's okay. We'll have a link to it in the description once this goes live. But we wanted to have you back because you know so much about this stuff. And as I always ask my guests, and I'm going to ask you this again for folks who haven't seen you the first time around,
Mhm,
before we get into the topic, which is a really exciting, like really granular compliance related topic. So it's really cool, I think.
mhm.
Um, what's your passion in this space? Like what gets you going every day when it comes to the world of work and payroll and honestly tax compliance? Like what gets you moving?
So it's like a puzzle, right? So think about a big jigsaw puzzle. You have stuff on the employer side, you have stuff on the compliance side, and definitely items on the employee side. And you're trying to fit all those pieces together so that one, you're compliant. Two, the employees are getting paid accurately in the way that they desire. Like if their withholding is single, but they're married, maybe there's a reason for that, stuff like that. And then obviously you want to make sure that people are paid accurately on the employer's side, but you don't want to overpay or underpay because that becomes a headache for the employer as well. Not to mention the employee.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
when they're overpaid, they might not say anything, which is a huge
true,
problem, you know.
true.
And unless it's a huge amount, you get overpaid by 100,000. Well, I better say something, or they'll find out, and then I'll be in trouble later. But
Mhm.
not this ever happened to me, and it has not happened to me. Any kind of
That's good.
overpayment that I was aware of. Uh,
Yeah, that's really good.
yeah. Yeah, they say people are lying when they scratch their nose with their left hand, but I'm not lying. I'm really not.
Well, I've
So
never heard
anyway,
that before.
I was watching something just in my free time. I watch videos on how to know how when people are lying. Just kidding. It was showed up on my algorithm on YouTube, sitting stuck with me. So
Nope.
anyway, yeah, you're right. And when you're underpaid, when people get underpaid, well, they're gonna call up payroll right away and say,
Yeah,
"Hey,
they're gonna
what's
call
going on
payroll,
here?"
they're gonna talk to their immediate supervisor, they're gonna keep going, escalating, because obviously they didn't get their full pay, and that's not a good thing, obviously. That's never what the employer or the payroll team wants. It just whatever reason happens behind it, whether, something got dropped off the timesheet or something didn't, something communicated what didn't happen. Like if they changed their benefits but didn't realize there were going to be more benefit dollars coming out, stuff like that. So there's a lot that happens in a very short amount of time. And I think that a lot of people, unless you're in the payroll space, they don't understand. Payroll practitioners and even like managers, reviewers, all of that, they're not just pushing a button. I mean, they are going through and just, auditing the heck out of everything for everybody at once to get them paid.
Yeah. Yeah. So many moving parts. It happens very quickly, and people who aren't in payroll, they don't really understand all the intricacies of what's going on. There's a sort of the running joke of, oh, it's paper. Don't you guys just press a button? Yeah, at the very
Hmm.
end of a very complicated process, we do, you know, technically press a button on, with our mouse on the computer screen. This is actually a really good segue into our topic today.
Mhm.
And I'm going to maybe ask you to frame it, but I'll just, I'm going to kind of share a few things. We have, state level credits and how payroll can help to curate people assets and this kind of stuff. Um, what's going on here? Frame it for our audience a little bit here.
Sure. So when an employer hires, and obviously the bigger the employer across the United States, the more states they're in, the more credits that they can have. So typically through either unemployment or withholding reporting, depending if the state has state income tax withholding, the employer is eligible for certain tax credits. And what it is a strategy not only for the employer in hiring, but also the type of hire that they're doing. So, for an example, one of the former employers I was working for, I recently captured, trying to remember, I want to say almost $1 million in credits over 3 years in one state. And this is an employer roughly between 5 to 15,000 employees, not all in that state though. Okay. They're across the whole United States, but this particular state, Georgia, wants to promote a more technical employee work base. And
Mm.
so one of the things they're really pushing employers is if your employee has a laptop or a PC workstation that they work at, that's how they do their job. They're not doing paper, they're doing computer. The employer can get credits not only for supplying the workstations, but also for training and whatnot. So, because of that, the employer I was at made a conscious effort. You know what? We've got front office coordinators, receptionists, we have medical assistants. They're going to have a laptop. We're going to stop doing paper in the healthcare industry, anyways. So, we're going to move away from paper. We're going to take advantage of this tax credit. And over 3 years, yielded almost $1 million
Wow.
in one
Wow.
state.
So,
One
wow.
state.
What? Yeah, that's amazing. So there's a lot of, so in other words, there's a lot of money that a lot of employers are probably leaving on the table here.
Yes, definitely. Another state, South Carolina, and this was pre-pandemic, so I'm not sure if they still do this, but I was at a different international global employer who I was tasked with Puerto Rico, the United States, and the Philippines. So, um, as the program manager, I was looking, make sure taxes are accurate on all of those payrolls and all of that, and other payroll and payroll tax related duties. But the other thing was the work opportunity tax credit. South Carolina was again similar to Georgia. They wanted to introduce tech, but they went a step further. They were giving out, I want to say it was almost $1 million grant if you opened up a retail or a tech center. And because this was telecommunications, what they ended up doing was they opened up a retail spot to sell cell phones. And then they also had another spot right next door adjacent that they were having technology workers come in and work, or they were training new ones. And that's just one
That's
example.
where does one as okay, so is there anybody at an organization that's normally tasked with that? Sounds like something that maybe the tax compliance person would need to be sort of clued into, to look into. Like, how does one go about finding out this information and availing themselves of these credits?
If you use like a major payroll software system or provider, then they usually have that as an add-on to their services. And they'll help you find those tax credits. They usually negotiate a separate contract from your payroll software contract, and they usually want a percentage of what they find for you. Yeah. But it's readily available at every state. You can look. The WOTC tax credits are simple if you are used to them and you know what you're doing, but they're not, they can be complex if you're not used to what's going on. So, for example, the employer that I was recently at, where I got the almost $1 million in Georgia, they had, prior to using the software payroll provider for the WOTC, they were using a national accounting firm, a Big Six or a Big
Mm.
Four now. And I don't know if it was just a really cheap contract or if it was a junior accountant, but they really never gave information. You know, they would kind of do a calculation, send over a spreadsheet, and charge a lot of money. And it was like, did you actually file with the state for that, that credit, or are we supposed to do it? And I wasn't there at the time. So when I showed up, that was the first thing I asked. I was seeing the spreadsheets and going, okay, have these been filed or not? And no one could answer me. So then I went to our CFO and our controller, and they were like, we don't think it's been filed. And it was, of course, money on the table at that point. So then the payroll provider saw an opening. I had talked to them because I had worked with them prior at a different employer and knew that they could, make themselves useful in this respect because they could use their national contacts and their databases to go through and pick out the credits that were applicable to the company. And so that's how we were able to leverage Georgia.
That's fascinating. Couple of questions. Um, it's okay to mention vendor names. Do you happen to recall which vendor this was?
Yes, ADP.
ADP.
Hmm.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Um, Now I have a question
Sure.
around at that organization. Where did payroll sit? Did it sit under HR or under finance at that particular organization?
So when I joined, it was year 4 of a startup. And
Okay.
uh,
Okay.
there was,
So it's out with everybody.
yeah, it kind of,
Okay.
payroll they were starting to organize. And so payroll technically reported up under HR as far as titles, positions, budgets, but payroll also reported up to accounting and finance. I mean, it was very closely interrelated. There was a lot of reporting that had to be done for accounting and finance for the venture capital firm who was providing the seed money for the startup. So there was a lot of eyes on everything. And there were, this was, gosh, I think prior to stopping acquisitions, they had gone through roughly about 350 acquisitions. And um, from an accounting standpoint, went well. From a payroll standpoint, no.
Yeah.
No.
Well, this is all kind of like, sort of like not funny, haha. Well, a little bit haha, but more just like a knowing laugh because, payroll can often, suffer when you go through all of that M&A. Um, that's super interesting. Oh, I had a question was right at the tip of my tongue. It'll come back to me. Um, but this is interesting because we have this sort of okay, that's what was my question
Hmm.
was around this idea of a lot of organizations, we're talking about compliance today and tax credits and all these sort of hidden money that a lot of organizations are leaving on the table because they don't understand how tax credits work, or maybe they even don't realize that there are tax credits related to this specifically.
Hmm.
Um, but, and also a lot of organizations, they might go out there and think, oh yeah, I can hire anybody and train them to do payroll or whatever, right? They might think that, right? But that's that's kind of not the right attitude to have because imagine if this company had brought someone without your experience on board, they wouldn't have known to ask this question about what was going on with the Big Six, now Big Four accounting firm they were working with beforehand. So, you know, can you just kind of like put a fine point on that or an exclamation point on that? The importance of having a real payroll professional as an asset at your organization.
Sure. When I came on board, there was a payroll team of 4 handling 44 different FEINs and companies. Yeah, it was ugly. And what they had done as a strategy, not the payroll, but the overall M&A team, had brought the FEINs on whole as companies into the payroll system. There were, gosh, almost 50 different PTO plans and sick pay plans and numerous benefit plans and stuff. And so part of the thing when they stopped doing M&A was to clean this up. And so one of the strategies was to go from 44 down to 8 FEINs. Another strategy, and it was a healthcare industry, so there were some particular states where you have to have physician-owned companies for physicians. So there are some compliance things that you have to maneuver around. But the other part of it was just going to the CFO and the chief accounting officer and also the controller and just saying, look, you guys have all this data. And we've been employing this accounting firm. And I'm not trying to make waves, but we're leaving money on the table. And I was able to point back to a former employer that was telecommunications and how we had, made big strides in the South for a different state, South Carolina, just by having tech. Again, training. They didn't even have to have a laptop dedicated to them, just training them in technology. And so South Carolina, and then also creating a tech training center in that particular state, South Carolina gave that telecommunications company almost $1 million grant to build that. So it was like a no-brainer. I mean, you're getting money to build the tech center to create your new workforce. So it made it super easy. But I went to the most recent employer in the healthcare industry and said, look, this is what I've seen that I've been a part of. And I know that we have other opportunities. And so within the first year, we had done over 50 states, and one of them was Georgia. We had gotten about $250,000 in tax credits. And only one
That's
of those,
amazing.
the only one of those was Georgia, where we actively had to get involved.
Huh.
Yeah, and provide
Interesting.
data to ADP. But ADP was able to find those, resources. Some, like the state of Texas, was just a matter of going, hey, healthcare industry, unemployment, filings are current. Do we qualify? And we were getting, they were small, but they were like every month we were getting a check just for employing in the state of Texas. It was small, but it was still, it's when you're a company and you're paying for all these things and you're building your revenue and everything, and then you passively have this check coming in for you. At first it kind of raised, eyebrows with the controller. She's like, where's this money coming from? And I said, tax credits. So, and
Mic drop, you're welcome.
yeah, exactly. What can I do for you?
Wow, that's cool. I could see that. I could see that. This is really this is a some of the the granularities and sort of the hidden pathways and stuff when you really get into the nitty-gritty about tax compliance and payroll and all of that, and I really want to thank you for sharing this story with us and
Mhm.
some of this sort of the background and just some of the ins and outs of it with the audience, Lori. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for this episode.
Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Workforce Management and Payroll Insights by HR.com. We hope today's episode brought you valuable insights and fresh perspectives on the future of payroll and workforce management. Be sure to check out more episodes and explore resources at HR.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep innovating and making a difference in the world of payroll and workforce management.